The League Two playoffs are a fascinating renewal. Chesterfield play against Walsall. Wimbledon play against Notts County. I don't think it's particularly outlandish, even if it is a little sensationalist, George, to suggest that 3 out of these 4 teams, I think the majority of the fan base, if they are to not win promotion and win these playoffs, I think 3 of the 4 fan bases would be keen for a managerial change. I'm talking Walsall, I'm talking Notts, I'm talking Wimbledon. It's a fascinating way to head into the playoffs, because the only team we're not talking about here are Chesterfield, who only punched their ticket on final day.
Isn't it also mad that, because if you look at pre-season expectations, Chesterfield were the only ones who expected to be there, and yet they're the ones who are happiest with their, it just, that in itself, I think, sums everything up, basically, of how achievement can alter expectation. Whereas, frankly, Paul Cook's probably been the one who's underachieved for the longest this season, but not when it's mattered, and that means he's the one who comes in with his side, in the best nick in terms of the fan base. It's funny. It's a funny game.
It's the most obvious momentum team in the EFL playoffs this season, with Chesterfield having finished the season so strongly and the others all sliding. They play Walsall, the first leg at Chesterfield on Sunday, the second leg next Friday. The regular season game saw a 2-2 draw at Chesterfield and a 3-1 Walsall win. And you might be thinking, yeah, but Walsall were probably good at that point. Actually, this was one of only 3 league wins since February. They did manage to beat Chesterfield. And George, Walsall are the story of League Two this season, whatever happens, given it's been a slide down the table from a position of strength. I'm not sure we've seen the like, certainly not in the last 10 years or so since we've been covering these leagues.
Yeah, it's been crazy, frankly, to see Walsall's demise. To go from being this just winning machine who were so impressive, whose performances, results, everything about them, the style of play, the efficiency, the no need for the ball, the chance creation, the shot for every 15 passes completed, the ability of Nathan Lowe to score the chances they were creating, their efficiency from set pieces, to be 12 points clear at the top of the table, to be 17 points clear of the team that end up beating you into third is quite something. And to lose points in so many ridiculous ways, like squandering leads consistently, and then on final day, and the thing that will get lost about final day is that they won. They went to Crewe having only won 2 games since mid-January, knowing they had to do their bit to win and put the pressure on Bradford's, and they did it, and they won. And it was, people didn't think they could win anymore, and yet that cruel twist of fate meant that as their game was drawing to a close, Bradford scored a goal that's been credited to Anthony Sarcevic, but seeing that angle from behind the goal probably makes it even worse. Looks to me like it was an own goal. As a shot is diverted past the Fleetwood keeper into the back of the net, and it means that now, having been 30 seconds away from pulling off probably the first automatic promotion that we could probably have described as a great escape, given the means that it came about and given how they squandered their position, Matt Sadler now has to somehow get his players and rally them and get them up for this challenge. We've seen quite a few times. I didn't spend ages kind of trawling through league tables to look at this, but just off the top of my head, I can think of 3 occasions where something similar has happened, albeit not exactly the same. Mm-hmm. We have Accrington 10 years ago, who, do you remember Darryl Clark crying on the pitch for at the Mem? Bristol Rovers securing promotion really late in that game, meaning that Accrington, who, unlike Walsall, hadn't dropped down in the same way, had risen up all that season with an incredible performance, were then suddenly in the playoffs. They were beaten in the playoffs over 2 legs, and then got promoted automatically 2 seasons later. There was Northampton, whose game finished, but then Bristol Rovers once scored 7 goals in order to achieve promotion. Northampton, over 2 legs, lost to Mansfield in the semi-finals, and then came up automatically the season after. Stockport, who, as we say, were no way should they not have finished in the top 3 the season before last, and they were knocked out at Wembley and looked a shadow of themselves all season. It's given the mental stress, I guess, that Sadler and his team have been under, and the immense pressure they've been under for the last 4 months, let alone the last week. it's going to be if they somehow pull this off and they go up, I will be like, I'll be unbelievably happy for him and all Walsall fans who've absolutely been through it. But I think it'll be one of the most incredible things I've seen. And yet, obviously, that's not reflected in the betting odds at all because, Walsall, for the most part, their underlying numbers have been good through this run. They've generally been unlucky rather than bad for the most part. They've still got quality players, Jamie Jellis and George Hall being two players who are going to be so important in terms of providing the attacking quality they need to create chances and score goals. Jamil Matt, you'd think, will come, having not started, but coming on at half-time, will lead the line for them with those two players in behind. They're very good from set pieces, in particular Taylor Allen, who is a threat from shooting, from range, a threat in the box, a penalty taker too. 10 goals he's scored so far this season, 2 of which were penalties. They have the quality and they have the potential to be so strong. Their defensive record remains pretty good. In Simpkin, they've got an on-loan keeper from Stoke who's been relatively dependable most of the season, albeit has been beaten by a lot of individual quality as of late. It's so hard to quantify where they are. But as I say, the driving factor here, to me, seems like it has to be psychological rather than analysing their performance levels.
Yeah, Chesterfield are a good side. They're a good side, and you might think, well, where were they for the whole season? Because they left it late to punch their way into the top 7. But I think there are some mitigating circumstances. This is the team that won the National League last season, had an unbelievable season where they were home and hosed practically by Christmas, and the last couple of months of the season, standards dropped a little bit. It's been a bit of a strange season in League Two. I thought they started the season looking really impressive whenever I saw them. Didn't necessarily have the results to back that up. And if you look at their results from the early part of the season, I think they drew 7 of their first 12 league games maybe, and like 3 2-all draws in there, 3 4 1-all draws in there as well. This was the picture was building of a team that were in the image of Paul Cook, as his teams tend to be. Very attack-minded, very keen to get on the front foot, keep the ball, move it around, hit attacking players, particularly wide players, and Dobra in the number 10. Created lots of chances and were really potent, but couldn't work out how to keep clean sheets, couldn't work out how to handle League Two attackers or League Two attacking styles. Took them quite a while. In the middle part of the season, just when I thought they were going to come on strong, they had a horror run from kind of Christmas until start of March, basically, where they lost 8 of 12 games. At this point, they had horrendous injuries. I mean, they've got the most insane squad. If you're like a casual observer of the EFL over the last 10 years, and you look at Chesterfield's squad, it gives off like 2015 League One solid squad vibes. Whether it's Paddy Madden and Will Grigg, whether it's Tom Naylor and John Fleck, whether it's Carl McFadden, Shay Dunkley, Janoy Donassian, Michael Jacobs. There are some I'm forgetting here. It's absolutely insane, this squad. There are so many old pros with promotion experience, which you have to think helps in terms of the playoff campaign, even though it didn't really help in the regular season because so many of them struggled to stay fit and able to play regularly and consistently. 14 players in their squad that are 30 or over. In a time where most squads and most recruitment teams are going younger and younger and younger. Paul Cook's just gone like, don't worry, get me the 33-year-old that can still play. I don't mind paying a high wage for a couple of years with no sell-on fee, with no resale value rather. It's really, really interesting. The last 2 months, they've just reeled in the playoffs. If you take 2 months from today, so 5th of March, the league table has Chesterfield at the top with 28 points from 13 games, 8 wins. Donny next best, 5 back on 23 from 11, and Port Vale 23 from 13. So they have been the league's best team for the last 2 months. And if it's not just that they've been good, it's that Wimbledon have the 10th best record in that time, that Notts have the 15th best record in that time, that Walsall have the 21st best record in that time. I think this is an unbelievable opportunity from a betting point of view because Chesterfield are the outsiders for promotion. They're the outsiders when it comes to the semi-final against Walsall. And it's not just because they've got momentum that I think that it's in the context of the other 3 teams, in the context of Chesterfield always being a good team, but having a few different circumstances over the season that meant it took a while for that to really come through and for them to become a consistent winning football team. But there's so much quality. I mean, the starting 11 on Saturday, their win against Accrington, John Fleck and Tom Naylor in midfield with the youngster Metcalf on loan. Will Grigg up top, who scored in the last 3 games after coming back from injury. Cole Clough and Ola Kigbe off the wings, but with Dylan Duffy, with Michael Jacobs available off the bench as well. I really like Gordon, the left back, and then the centre backs of Carl McFadden and Ash Palmer looking so solid and so good. So really interesting team, good team to watch. 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, high possession, really attacking, joint top scorers behind Walsall, joint second top scorers in the league. And for me, George, it's pretty straightforward. And maybe this is just a trap, and maybe we're missing everything. But I don't think so. Like, if this is the two teams at their best, it'll be a fascinating game, particularly stylistically, because Walsall don't want the ball and love winning it back and creating a shot within 10 seconds. And Chesterfield want the ball and they want to dominate the game. But this isn't Walsall at their best. They haven't been doing that for a long period of time. Almost none of the different parts of the team that all clicked at the same time and made them look like such a well-oiled machine, all of them now look a little rusty, a little battered, a little bruised, a little tired, a little out of ideas. And I feel like the last few months I've just watched the same Walsall game over and over of, like, in possession, they work it out wide, and the wing-back tries to dig in across, and instead of it being knocked down for Nathan Lowe to smash in, it just sort of bobbles around and gets cleared away. The set pieces aren't nearly as potent as they were. The temperament of the team just doesn't seem good enough. And particularly at the back, they looked so confident and so dominant out of possession and defending with a pretty high line at times. And now they just look, they've got holes in them. So yeah, Chesterfield to win. From a betting point of view, I don't have a specific pick. I'll be interested to hear yours, but pretty much any pro Chesterfield angle I think looks like value to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just to kind of argue the case for the defence for a second, like, there is, if you look at the XG data, the underlying numbers, Walsall still projects incredibly well. Like, it does look like it's a massive period of really bad luck, compounded by a drop-off of form and losing a player of lowest quality. And having watched a fair bit of them recently too, there was the game against Doncaster where I was really impressed by them. They came back twice in that game to grab a point. There was the first half an hour against Accrington where they looked really good and like they were going to break the deadlock, and then conceded and then struggled to rally themselves afterwards. The pressure against Newport looked like it was going to tell. Like, there have been so many times you watch them, they're like, they probably deserve to be ahead here, and they haven't managed to do it. And I guess it wouldn't be impossible for variance to go their way. But for me, it's just a case, as you say, where, like, history tells us that teams who suffer heartbreak struggle to get over it quickly. And I can't think of a heartbreak as brutal and long-lasting as Walsall's has been. And if we're sitting at Wembley, even watching Walsall, I'll be mightily impressed by Sadler and his side being able to do that. And for that reason, them being favourites to qualify in the tie just can't tally in my mind with reality. So yeah, 21-20 about Chesterfield to qualify is definitely for me the way to play this. And I would probably stick my neck out and predict that I think Chesterfield will be favourites to qualify by the time this tie kicks off.
Wimbledon Notts County in the 5th v 6th. The first leg at Notts on Saturday night, the second leg the following Saturday lunchtime. Wimbledon finished 5th with a big win when they needed to at Grimsby on final day. It looked like a bit of a blueprint of Wimbledon's best version of themselves away from home this season, where they don't sparkle and they don't look to sparkle. They look to keep it very, very tight. I think 52% of their away games have had one goal or fewer. And that was the case at Grimsby, where the first half passed with them not doing a huge amount in attack, but defending their box pretty well. And then they scored a set piece and they saw it out very well from there. For Wimbledon, this is a big moment for the club. They dropped down from League One, where they punched above their weight and fought gamely against relegation for a long time until they couldn't. They finished 21st in their first season back in League Two. Then they finished 10th. Then they finished 5th. They, unusually for most teams in this sort of scenario, have stuck with their manager, Johnny Jackson, throughout that and have seen some improvement season by season. They were gunning for the top 3 for a lot of this season, and they very clearly dropped off over the last couple of months. So I wouldn't say that confidence within the fan base is hugely high here. but I think you could probably say the same for their opponents as well. It's a club that have sold Jack Rodoni, Ayub Assal, Ali Al-Hamdi and Jack Curry in the last couple of years. And with the revenue that they built from that, given that they are a fan-owned club and they don't have someone injecting hundreds of thousands each month just to pay the bills, they've managed to build a good squad for the level with a pretty sturdy profile. And that's what they are, really sturdy, not particularly flashy and not always very exciting, but a good, solid League Two team. The positives are they've been the best defensive team in League Two by miles, to be honest. They've conceded 10 goals fewer than any other team in League Two this season over 46 games. 10 goals fewer. A quarter of a goal practically per game fewer than the next best defence. It's pretty crazy. 21 clean sheets, tons of zeros and ones. And that's how they've built their points tally, because they're not a great attacking team. They've had spells, particularly early in the season, where they're pretty effective. They got goals from Matty Stevens, with Bugle providing a good target man foil. Josh Neufield's had some good moments. James Tilley, the wing-backs, have got goals from set pieces at different times. But they're not a great attacking team, and they have failed to score 15 times in 46, which isn't ideal. There's a bit of a narrative that built that they can't hold on to leads, or they have a weakness holding on to leads and seeing out games, which I feel strongly is a myth, because it happened 4 times in 5 games at one point in March and April, and I admit that's going to be frustrating, and that's going to lead to an idea that they're not good at holding on to leads. But Wimbledon conceded the lowest proportion of equalisers of any team in League Two this season. They took the lead 27 times and they only conceded 7 equalisers. So I would say they're one of the most impressive teams at defending a lead. That's certainly been the case when I've seen them win games this season, not just going ahead, not just sitting deep and just clearing everything that comes into their box, but actually being very proactive in making sure that they don't even restrict many entries into their box. Their biggest issue, because they're not that good at breaking teams down, is when they're behind. So I think the first goal really important here. There's been 3 at the back all season long. Those wing-backs, Neufeld and Tilley, are pretty important for chance generation, chance creation. They don't get a huge amount on that front outside of either striker partnerships, which when they work have looked great, and when they don't work can look quite difficult, quite tough to watch. And Tilley and Neufeld do create a lot of that attack, beating their man, getting to the byline, getting crosses in from deep in Tilley's case. Bugle, who I love, has 4 goals in 39 games this season, which is pretty crazy. Now, strike partnerships are about the duo, and Stevens is the 3rd top scorer in the league, so you could argue that overall you get broadly what you want from those two as a partnership. Smith I like in midfield, but there's no doubt that they've lost a little bit of their sheen of invincibility, their sturdiness from the early part of the season. It doesn't feel quite so well balanced at the moment, and that's what it was, really well balanced for the first 2/3 of the seasons. Bit of tactical funkiness from Jackson on final day. He swapped the wing backs. Neufeld and Tilley played inverted. I'm not particularly sure what the reason for that would be. I'd be surprised if we see it again here, although it is something that Notts County do quite a lot themselves, with Cerullo off the right. I think they've got to go beefy here. They've got to embrace the matchup against a Notts County team that they have, that I saw them steamroller only a couple of months ago at Plough Lane, win comfortably by 2-0. It's a Notts team, George, that take a very specific tactical approach for this level.
Yeah, it is. And we're used to this since they got promoted under Luke Williams and under Stuart Maynard. It's continued, albeit maybe to a slightly less extreme degree. They average the highest possession in League Two. Their average of 445 passes per game is the most in League Two by about 35. But crucially, this isn't, I think, as can often be the case, especially at League Two level, often the teams who average the highest possession post really poor attacking numbers, because it can often be possession for possession's sake, and this means of attacking doesn't necessarily translate particularly well to the level of football. But that just isn't the case with Notts County. Like you mentioned there, that AFC Wimbledon are the best defensive team in League Two. There's probably an argument to be had that the Notts County are the best attacking team in League Two. In Jatta and McGoldrick, they got 2 players who between them have scored 36 league goals this season. Like, it's absolutely extraordinary. 2 very, very different players. Jatta, very much the penalty box striker, did see that player who still is able to score spectacular goals, link play really, really effectively, such a clever striker. And yeah, for them, when they're good and when they're at their best, they are scintillating going forward. Jody Jones is back fit, which is obviously a plus for them. The League Two player of the season last season. He's posting pretty good numbers again. He hasn't played that many minutes, so he got 5 goals and 3 assists, and he'll be someone who'll look to create from that left-hand side. They lost Dan Crowley in January, who decided to up sticks and move to MK Dons, which is a move that's aged relatively badly in the short term. But George Abbott has been a revelation for them in midfield. He won the EFL Goal of the Season, but he's coming on loan from Spurs and has a real mixture of athleticism, able to break down play, but also quality on the ball, which suits them incredibly well. So it all sounds pretty positive, but their form is really bad. Like they come into this probably playing as poorly as they have done all season. Like they were hit by... There was a big game between them and Port Vale a couple of months ago, which Port Vale won 1-0 thanks to Ronan Curtis. And I watched that game, and they were ravaged by injuries at the time. And I remember thinking, like, this is just a shadow of the team we'd seen earlier in the season, and it feels like they've struggled to find that groove again since key players like McGoldrick and Jatta have come back into the side. They've won one of their last 6 games. They've had 2 massive games in those 6 games against Colchester and Salford at a time where their position in the top 6 was relatively precarious, but they were close enough to the top 3 to force their way in against 2 teams who were trying to chase them down into the top 7, and they lost both. The last 3 teams that they've beaten, dating back quite a long way, Newport, who the underlying numbers would have as the worst team in the league, Harrogate, who aren't that far off that, and MK, who in this period have been one of the worst teams in the league. They haven't beaten a decent side for so long. You mentioned there, Notts fans might want to change a manager. I think, in my mind at least, Stuart Maynard has done pretty well, given this is a Notts County side that finished last season in mid-table, and he steered them into a position through a bad injury crisis onto the brink of the top 3. But it doesn't help his cause whatsoever. They come into this in such poor form, and from a stylistic perspective, AFC Wimbledon looked to me to be that blueprint of a side that normally does well in League Two. They're physical, they're good defensively, they give very little away, good from set pieces, up against a side who, you have to be so good at League Two level to do this. I keep talking about us, but like the Oxford team under Appleton that got promoted out of League Two, the majority of that team ended up playing top tier football. They still didn't even win the league. It's hard to do this and be successful at League Two level. And if Notts were bang at it and in their best form, I would fancy them. But in this clash of styles, I find it really hard not to think it plays into Dons' hand. So we'll be happy to let Notts County have it, and we'll trust themselves to shut down their attacking threat as best as they can. I think it would suit Notts County if they were playing against a team where we could expect lots of goals, but this certainly isn't that. Notts County are favourites for this one. I would disagree and have AFC Wimbledon as my pick to qualify at 21-20 with AK bets.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'll admit I'm slightly blinded here by the fact that I went to that Wimbledon 2 Notts County 0 game about 2 months ago, and the gulf between the two teams was massive. It was a complete mismatch, to be honest. Physically, yes, as you've mentioned, and very, very visibly, Wimbledon are larger and stronger than Notts County, and they teamed all over them. But it wasn't just about physicality. It wasn't like cavemen just battering these little dweebs of Notts County. There's like a technical and tactical element to it as well, where, yes, Notts County play short passes, which makes them seem like a technical team, but it's about getting the ball into dangerous areas. It's about creating chances. And Wimbledon did that consistently in a few different ways, whether it was going long into Bugiel and playing off him, whether it was building through the thirds, going out wide and getting quite a lot through their wing-backs. I can't really look past that because I've seen it happen in front of my eyes. And I do think Wimbledon have the ability to just kill games away from home. And I think that, maybe Notts with a big atmosphere at home, maybe Notts with... probably the 2 players that are most likely to create a moment of magic in McGoldrick and in Jody Jones, if you can shake off some of that post-injury rust. But I think Wimbledon could maybe just kill that game completely, frustrate Notts County, keep them away from their box in the main. And I do think that they'll edge it over 2 legs. I think Chesterfield will win promotion at Wembley. I think that a game between Chesterfield and Wimbledon would be pretty fascinating, I think. I quite like the matchup from Chesterfield's point of view in terms of having McFadden and Palmer to wrestle with Bugiel and Stevens, and having the midfield, that combination of quality and steel, which I think they've developed when they've got Naylor, Fleck and Metcalf. I think Gordon would be a good 1v1 defender up against Neufville, who is a big threat for Wimbledon. I think Gordon is about as good as it gets defensively, the left back for Chesterfield. And just as I keep mentioning, they've just got so much attacking talent now, whether it's pacey players, skillful players, old wily players like Grigg. I would back them to come out on top over 90 minutes. So yeah, we're going for the momentum candidate of Chesterfield, or at least I am. I think that, what are they, 7-2 with AK bets. I think that's, we've been doing this for 9 years or so, playoff previews with betting picks. I think this is one of the biggest betting opportunities that I can remember, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. Chesterfield is my pick as well. At 7-2, the nagging doubt in my mind is just the fact that Walsall have continued to go off short prices and have continued to post good numbers, but the prices just cannot factor in the burden, and I wouldn't worry too much about either Notts County or AFC Wimbledon in the final, albeit they'd probably go off favs. So yeah, I agree with you, and so that means the treble with AK bets pays just under 40-1 for my 3 selections, which is really good, I think, at least. Sheffield United in the Championship, Charlton in League One, and Chesterfield in League Two. It's also handy if you go to AK's big prices at the top of the AK bets website. You can see, there's loads of other sports there as well, but you've also got all 3 playoff ties and the promotion odds and everything all compact into one little spot. So easy to find your way around.
Yeah, and because I'm going for Coventry over Sheffield United at a longer price, my multi is even juicier, 58.5 for Coventry, Stockport and Chesterfield to win promotion. So we see eye to eye on a lot of this stuff, but not all of it. Pretty bloody excited about this. Stick with us throughout the playoffs, throughout May. We'll be going great guns to cover the playoffs as best we can on the NTT20 pod feed and NTT20.com as well. Thank you and go well.